Thank you for coming in. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I have volunteered at the Out of the Cold homeless shelter at Eglinton West and Marley for 9 years. Since I began at that shelter, it has increased from serving 90 meals to 180 meals. Our sleeping area is at the fire code maximum of 55 beds. The shelter only operates Tuesday evenings through Wednesday mornings from the beginning of January to the end of March each year. We regularly turn away people who wish to sleep at the shelter because of our limited capacity. The proposed shelter at 731 Runnymede Road is about 6.5 kilometers from Marley and Eglinton on the TTC. I know there is demand for more homeless shelters in the former city of York because I have personally witnessed the increase in demand over nearly a decade, and you don't even need to take my word for it. The report before you today states that men's homeless shelters are at an average of 97% capacity across the city, and there are no shelters west of Caledonia Road. In terms of the local context, the only reasonable argument I have heard from the local councillor relates to a lack of transit. So I circled a 1 kilometer radius around the proposed site on a TTC map and found that no, it was not in a transit desert, but it was in fact in close proximity to no less than 9 routes, 8 with direct service of less than 5 minutes to the Bloor Danforth subway. In terms of the broader context, it is extremely important to ask, why are our shelters always over capacity? The answer is simple. When it comes to affordable housing, all 3 levels of government have failed this city. According to the city's own numbers, 50% of Toronto's homeless population is on the affordable housing waiting list, which at last count was over 160,000 people. We have not built a single unit of rent-geared to income housing in over 20 years. While the upper levels of government should be contributing more, at the end of the day, the local government has a responsibility to make sure every citizen has a roof over their head, regardless of their level of income. I know a lot of councillors say we have no money for affordable housing, but those are the same councillors who support flushing a wasteful $3 billion down the drain for one unjustified subway stop. So don't bother telling me we don't have money. It's about priorities. In closing, there is absolutely a need for a homeless shelter in this location. Statements about the proposed location being inaccessible by public transit are not based on evidence. The long-term solution is investing in more affordable housing, and it must be a priority. I would like to thank neighbouring councillor Sarah Doucette for her support and common-sense approach to working with and not against the city on integrating this new shelter with the existing community. According to this report, emergency shelters are used by seniors, those with disabilities, mental health issues, the working poor, Aboriginals, and the LGBTQ community. Not approving this shelter would send a message that Council doesn't care if our most vulnerable citizens have a roof over their head. Thank you very much.
All right, on time. Questions for the Deputant. Councillor Nunziata.
To the Deputant, I didn't hear your where you live. Where do you live?
I live in southern North York.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Doucette.
Thank you very much for coming today. So are you aware that we do have homeless men living along our railway tracks, behind Walmart, behind the industrial buildings? And I actually have a homeless man living in one of my school playgrounds. Are you aware that we've got homeless on the boundaries and in Ward 11 and Ward 13?
Yes, absolutely.
Do you feel that these people are likely to go to a shelter nearby because maybe they don't want to go all the way downtown out of their local community?
Absolutely. It's not reasonable to have these people traveling to Seton House for sure. That's very far away. And as I stated, the shelter which is nearby, which I volunteer at, only operates from January to March, and it's over capacity.
And sorry, how many, this is a men's out of a cold program, or is it for?
It's men and women.
And how many men do you generally have coming in for this program on those few days?
Maybe 140 a night.
Wow. Okay, thank you very much for coming today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Doucette. Councillor Mihevc.
It's always good to see you, Councillor Mihevc.
Great to see you. You're more than just a transit guy.
It's true.
Yeah. Could you describe a little bit more the shelter that you are, Shelter Out of the Cold program that you are a part of, and most specifically, how that impacts the local neighborhood?
So that shelter is surrounded by a residential area on all sides. As far as I know, there's been no complaints from those residents. I've been volunteering there 9 years. As I understand, it existed even 5 years before I started volunteering there or more. And especially to the south side, it's a higher income area. And those people don't seem to have a problem with this shelter. But yes, 180 meals a night and about 55 people sleep over.
Does your program get complaints from local residents related to whatever, vagrancy, sleeping in backyards, drug dealing, petty criminal activity, or anything of the sort?
Not that I'm aware.
Mr. Chair, just hold on. Mr. Chair. I know that Councillor Nunziata would not tolerate us doing the things that she is doing at council.
You know, Councillor Burnside is
outwork the
very
crowd.
distracting, and I'm going to reprimand him. Sorry, Councillor Mihevc, you can continue.
Thank you. You've heard my question.
Yes, so over the decade that I've been there, I don't know of any complaints that have ever been filed. And as it's in your ward, I'm sure you would be aware of enraged residents, which do not exist.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chair, I'm finding the catcalls from the audience, frankly, inappropriate, and I'd ask that you caution them on that. We're trying to have a respectful conversation here.
Yeah, you know, I would say,
Chair, I find that frankly intimidating and inappropriate.
you know what,
I'd ask you to
I
call
would.
security if it happens again and have them removed.
Thank you, Councillor Mihevc. I would caution the audience that catcalls and side comments are inappropriate. This is technically the 4th public meeting on this one. You were unsatisfied with the first 3. We're trying to make this one improved. Any other questions for the Deputant? Councillor Burnside.
Hi. So I'm just trying to understand your position. So do you think the residents should have a say in this?
I think while public engagement is important, everybody knows that no one ever wants a homeless shelter close to them, but it's an important service that our city provides.
That wasn't my question. My question, do you think the residents should have a say in this? That's my question.
Yes. I think they should, but I think that council also has a responsibility to make sure that people are not sleeping on the street.
So council should take into account their position and potentially decide either way?
Council should certainly listen to public comments, but also keep in mind that our shelters are at 97% capacity.
So I think what you're saying is listen, but don't really act.
What I'm saying is it's always important for the government to hear what the people have to say. But at the end of the day, these community members which are opposed to the shelter are not sleeping on the street. And until they have slept on the street, I don't think that they can see this from the perspective of a homeless person.
You were at North York Community Council, weren't you, deputing about a stop sign at Avenue Road in Lawrence?
That is correct.
And you wanted us, you didn't want the stop sign, you wanted us to, you wanted the stop sign, you wanted us to implement it, correct?
I did want that stop sign.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burnside. Any other questions for the Deputant? Okay, thank you very much.